What differentiates your book from other texts about Hezbollah?
There are lots of books out there on Hezbollah. Almost all of them focus on Hezbollah as a political and social actor in Lebanon, which it is. But it is also a militia and a criminal organization and a terrorist organization. And if you try and look in the existing literature for Hezbollah's global activities, its fundraising, its logistics, its terrorist operations, you'll find a couple of pages here, a small chapter there, but very, very little. It's part of why the research for this book took almost a decade, because you can't do this by research, through Google. A lot of field research, a lot of begging for documents, court documents, government documents, experts, people who have been involved researching Hezbollah for many years, putting this all together and then making it into a readable book took a long time because it's hard material to come by.
Who do you think would benefit the most from reading your book?
I think lots of different audiences will benefit from reading the book. We tried very, very hard to make this a book that could be marketed to trade, that is a readable book. It's interesting. There are stories here that grip the reader. One of my favorites is right out of a Pink Panther movie involving stolen diamonds and assassinations in Asia, and just really interesting stuff that was fun for me not only to research but to write, and I'm hoping will be fun for the readers to read. But it'll also be very, very useful, I think, for professors and students who are trying to understand, either from a terrorism perspective, this particular group, or from a terrorism perspective, different types of terrorist behaviors, whether it's terrorist fundraising, terrorist logistics, or people trying to understand the Middle East. Because Hezbollah, again, what makes it complicated is that it's not just a terrorist organization, it's not just a militia, it is those things, but it also is a major political actor in Lebanon. It's a duly elected political actor in Lebanon, and it is a major social service provider in Lebanon, and you can't simply choose to ignore one or these others, which is what much of the literature has done by virtue of focusing on Hezbollah as a political party in Lebanon. It is, but it is ignored, perhaps because it was hard to find the information, Hezbollah's global terrorist fundraising and logistical activities. And then finally, I think the book is going to be very, very useful for policymakers, for law enforcement communities. I know this will be the case because even before the books come out, I've been asked to give a lot of presentations and private meetings on these things, because what tends to happen is that the people who are making policy related to this group in this region now, today, or the people who are investigating cases relating to Hezbollah now, today, are very, very focused on right now. This book goes back and provides a deep dive into the history and brings you back to today. And a lot of people who are working this issue in various aspects of government and academia, NGOs and elsewhere, simply don't have that information. Frankly, until I researched and wrote the book, I didn't either.
Now, as your book is exploring a lot of areas about Hezbollah that have not been brought to light before, what do you think the reactions and receptions that you'll be getting of the book might be like, and would you have any responses to what some of those responses might be?
Any type of book on Hezbollah is going to elicit all kinds of responses. Lots of people feel very, very strongly. There are people who believe that Hezbollah is just standing up to Israel, to the West, standing up for the downtrodden Shia community. They simply don't believe that Hezbollah is involved in terrorism or is a proxy of Iran. I think there's a tremendous amount of evidence here, not just from Israel, not just from the United States, but from the Chileans and the Romanians and the Singaporeans and on, that's going to make it very difficult to have that opinion given the facts. There will be people who will applaud the book simply because they ideologically like a book that describes Hezbollah as terrorist. Although the book makes clear that it is not just that. In fact, that's one of the contributions of the book, demonstrating how complicated a group it is. And there will be people who will be against it simply because it exposes Hezbollah's illicit activities in very stark form. I think there'll also be some people who will take issue with the fact that the research wasn't done in Lebanon, and I think that'll shock some people. And this was on purpose, because the book is not about Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's not about Lebanon. The book is, as the title suggests, about Hezbollah's global footprint. And so my field research was done all over the world, on multiple continents, but not in Lebanon, to try and keep that focus where it belonged on Hezbollah's activities beyond. Also, to be honest, Well, you can go and you can meet with Hezbollah and talk to them about their political activities or social welfare activities, and you can expect that at least some of their answers will be truthful. When you go to Hezbollah or any other covert organization and you ask them questions about their covert activity, covert means they probably don't want to tell you about it. And so the likelihood of those answers being forthcoming are much, much smaller. So I think that'll be an interesting discussion as the book comes out, and we're very open about it in the opening of the book. I'm not trying to hide anything here about kind of the methodology and the field work, but that's why it was so important to publish with a university press like Georgetown and to go through peer review, which can sometimes be painful, but the book is better for it, so that it is methodologically strong and sound in its grounding, but focused on what this particular study is about, Hezbollah's activities beyond Lebanon.
What are the main takeaways that you want somebody to get out of it after they've finished the book?
There are multiple takeaways from this book, and I wouldn't be able to hit them all. The first, as the title makes clear, is to demonstrate that Hezbollah is not simply a Lebanese actor only. It is a Lebanese actor, but it has, ever since its inception, been active abroad in corners of the world that you would not have assumed, from Argentina and Brazil and Paraguay and Chile to the United States and Canada, Western Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, really around the world. The second is for people to understand that what makes Hezbollah so complicated is that it is multiple things. And if you ignore any one of those identities, you're missing the entirety of who they are. Most books on Hezbollah so far have analyzed Hezbollah as a political and social actor in Lebanon, as a Lebanese actor. And it is that, but it's not only that. Without analyzing Hezbollah as an Iranian proxy, Hezbollah as an international terrorist entity, Hezbollah as an organization that is involved in all kinds of other activities around the world and as a regional actor, you miss a whole lot of who Hezbollah is and why it does what it does. This is why so many people have been confused about Hezbollah's activities in Syria. If you see Hezbollah as just a Lebanese actor, it's kind of difficult to explain that. And finally, I think it's important as a takeaway, it's not specific to Hezbollah per se, but as a concept in counterterrorism in the rule of law in general. And that is that whatever one's ideology, whatever one's goals are, there are certain activities that are unacceptable in the pursuit of those goals, and that might even undermine otherwise legitimate goals. And terrorism is first among equals there. So when you start blowing up busloads of civilians or firing rockets at civilian communities, that changes the whole nature of who you are. And Hezbollah fits into that category, among others.